Hi, and welcome. It's Patrick Donahoe. Today, we've got an incredible guest on the show, and he's here to talk with me about another key conversation to prepare for as you start implementing the Perpetual Wealth Strategy, which is conversations with your accountant, your CPA, your attorney, or CFO, depending on your situation. John Stewart is one of our wealth strategists here at Paradigm Life and is a deeply experienced entrepreneur. John has more than 20 years of experience working with financial professionals as an entrepreneur, an investor, and someone who actively utilizes the perpetual wealth strategy. He's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to talking to these financial professionals about the strategy. And today, he's going to share his insights and advice for how you can have an effective conversation with the other financial professionals on your team. So let's go ahead and dive in. Welcome to the Perpetual Wealth Strategy podcast. Hey everyone, how you doing? I'm here with my my good friend, and his office is right next to mine, so I get to hear him all the time. This is John Stewart, and John and I actually were friends before John came on with Paradigm, and it's just been an honor to know him over the years. He has just a wealth of knowledge. He's been in financial services in some capacity for what two plus decades, probably more. I don't want to reveal your age on air.
I think my hair reveals my age there. So
But
yeah,
John's here. I really wanted him and his expertise because he has had such a breadth of knowledge relating to the types of individuals that we get to meet with, you clients. And when it comes to the other financial professional relationships that you have, I would say there's no one better to talk about this because John has had extensive experience helping other financial professionals understand the perpetual wealth strategy at a level where they know how to incorporate it into your financial life and help other financial professionals like a CFO or a CPA or tax attorney, estate planning attorney, understand the different tenets of the strategy. So John, welcome. Why don't you take a second and get into maybe just a little bit more of the details of your background?
yeah. Thanks, Pat. Um, yeah. So, like speaking the first time, we met. Neither of us were, Paradigm Life was non-existent at that time, and um, at that time, I had multiple companies. So I had C corps, S corps, LLCs, trusts, and just with the different investments and companies I had. So I think that really gives me a good understanding as I started trying to implement the perpetual wealth strategy and explain it to my own accountant and attorneys. And it's really that's really benefited me from on this side because you know we have clients that come in as sole proprietors, LLCs, S corps, and every one of those is such a different dynamic. So not only do you have the different corporation structures, but then their finances and what they're doing with it and the income and their investments, it can all be so different and unique that a lot of the questions we get can't just be answered as a blanket Q&A, which makes it fun and interesting every day. So
You have every situation is unique and dynamic, and requires a sense of customization, right, for every case. And you look at the financial world and how most people are doing the same thing financially. It's similar in the professional world as well. And we've had great professional relationships and partnerships with other groups, Tom Wheelwright and Wealth Ability being one of them, and it's opened our eyes to the opportunities that exist, right, for business owners, for investors, which is always going to be changing because laws are always changing. But the ability to have conversation allows us to explain a different approach to financial strategy, personal financial strategy, which is why you guys are listening right now as clients, because the idea is to utilize unique insurance related products as the foundation of your financial life, but yet it's not the only part of financial life. So, John, maybe talk about the ways in which we set up strategy, and typically what are the exchanges that we would have with a CPA. Like, what's an example of that?
Well, a lot of times if you step back and look at, where we start, we always want to look at, what are the tax implications, and sometimes a client may come in with a particular situation that a few tweaks to how they're taking income, or how they're currently, doing different deferred things that a CPA is maybe set up with their situation, but now that it's changing, we always want to look at that. Tom Wheelwright said, before any investment, you want to start with what are the tax implications, because you can take a great investment with the wrong taxes for your situation and turn it into a poor one, and vice versa. So that's one where, we want to start and look at kind of where you're at, and then implement the perpetual wealth strategy into it. And a lot of times that can be, I was just talking with a client the other day, and his CPA had advised something over here. And I showed him just a few things with where his taxes were at, what we were going to be doing, and says, okay, here's some talking points to go down and talk to your CPA. And sometimes that's, there's just like any profession, there's phenomenal CPAs out there. And there's some that, just kind of check the boxes, just like in our industry as
Any
well,
industry.
any industry. And so it can either be talking points to go back. And with this individual, it was, his CPA was bringing up his attention of, look at how much money you're saving today. But what I was showing is how much that was costing him in the future, and it was a staggering number.
And that's
Okay.
typically the narrative, right?
Yeah.
Is all, what can you do today to pay the least amount of tax, right? And there's some easy ways in which you can do it. However, with most of them, there are trade-offs, right? And the
Yes.
trade-off is, what are you giving up in the future for the benefit right now? And that's a conversation that I would say most don't have, because the narrative is that, well, in the future you're gonna have lower income, you're gonna be in a lower tax bracket, but that's all speculation.
Yeah.
Okay, because of inflation, the dollar isn't going as far, so therefore you're gonna need more in the future, right? And then who wants to be in a lower tax bracket when they want to, when they want to not work as much, right? Most people want to
Yeah.
be in a higher one because they're making more money.
I had a client, an interesting perspective there. We were talking. I said, "So do you want to pay taxes on the seed or the harvest?" And he laughed and he goes, "Well, of course on the seed, but most financial plans out there make it sound like you're going to have 10 years of drought, and your harvest is going to be really poor. So of course you want to pay on the harvest because of that." Because that was kind of an
That's funny.
interesting twist there. But yeah, we'll whether it's talking points that we give for you to maybe go back and double check. Sometimes we have a CPA or an attorney on the call asking questions and double checking. Um, because just like for a lot of us, I mean, when I first heard of this, it was like I was the only one in my circle of friends that knew anything about it. My CPA knew nothing about it. So not only was I learning the process, I was trying to teach my professionals around me, and a lot of back and forth in getting this. And that's one of the bridges we want to, assist our clients with in that gap, is be a resource. And obviously, we're not CPAs, we're not attorneys, but there's a lot of that we see, and we can go back and forth and really help out our clients' professionals in getting the answers.
And that's why we like the word strategy, right? Because
Yeah.
strategy implies that there are so many moving parts, but yet there's so many ways to make something work and make it successful. And it requires different aspects of a personal financial strategy. So, strategic wealth management is not just using the perpetual wealth strategy, but it's also using the expertise of other financial professionals, like your tax professionals, because there's thousands of pages of the tax code, and there's lots of opportunities typically for business owners. But speaking of business owners, like what would you say are good things to practice when it comes to communicating with your financial professional, your CPA, your tax attorney, your estate planning attorney? What are some good rules of thumb to use when you go about doing that, and also involving Paradigm Life in the process?
Well, I think the biggest thing is a lot of people don't really talk about everything to all their professionals. So, I mean, even sometimes, we'll start on a plan, we'll get going, and then the client will come back. Oh, life. I didn't mention this over here, and those little things can change everything. And so, as we look at this, if the CPA has some unique strategy, or the attorney that you're doing over here, we want to make sure that everything we set up complements what's already being done, or vice versa. And so that conversation with the CPA on, hey, here are some of the benefits, and so this strategy may not be needed, or do you have anything that can complement this? Um, I think it's a moving, as our wealth grows, as our business grows, our investments, so does our strategies. And wealth strategies is just that. It's not a product or a investment. It's it's looking at the whole picture. And I think that's the biggest piece most people are missing, is seeing how everything they're doing fits together.
So let's maybe talk about some, I would say, specific things to note. And these are just going to be, they're going to be specifics. There are, of course, more, and that's why we definitely would recommend you having a good conversation with your CPA about what you're doing, as well as involve your wealth strategist, because they can fill in any potential voids, and then just link up with the CPA or tax professional to ensure that going forward there's a relationship there. But I would say the first thing to understand about the policy, which we've discussed in a previous episode, is they're usually after tax contributions, and then you have very tax favorable growth in the future. So you're not necessarily having the anxiety of what's going to happen to tax law or tax brackets in the future. However, that's the fundamental piece. So when it comes to the communication to a CPA regarding loans and what you're using policy loans for, how have you gone about doing that in the past?
Well, just, a CPA is always preparing for the audit. And so with any CPA or attorney, they want a paper trail, just like the IRS, to be able to really protect you, and make sure that there's not this void. So the biggest thing there is educating clients with, as we're taking business loans or investment loans, that we have a proper paper trail. Typically, they want to see an amortization schedule, a payment schedule, some sort of note. If it's a business taking it, the corporate minutes, stuff like that, to just make sure that everything's in line the way it should be.
And usually CPAs, they're keeping an ongoing balance sheet, right, and financial statements, so they can use the proper allocation to understand that. But because loans are private, that's where there has to be a pretty high degree of communication, so that the CPA is aware of exactly what's going on. So looking at some of the expertise that our wealth strategists have, I mean, I would say the first time that you're using it for a business purpose or an investment purpose, that you definitely involve them as well as your CPA. All right, so
Absolutely.
yeah, so let's maybe talk about the other uses of a policy when it comes to business, because the other thing that we've seen quite a bit of, and I know you have experience here, is the more common uses of insurance for business. Okay, whether it's a cross purchase agreement or a buy sell agreement, or it's a stock redemption, or key man.
Key
Like
man,
maybe
yeah.
talk about those general things, because I would say CPAs, CFOs, that professional world understands the common uses of insurance, which is more for protection. Okay, we're obviously talking about different types of strategies, but still you have that protection component. So maybe talk about those general uses and how those relate to the perpetual wealth strategy.
Well, I think a lot of our business owners, investors, they come in, looking at the perpetual wealth strategy on a personal side, with the access to capital, and the growth there. But the beauty is we can use the same thing on a business side. So now the business can have its reserves, it can have everything inside, at the same time facilitate what you're talking about with the death benefit. So we can take something everybody should have, like say with the key man, or take some of the other benefits you have there. There's also 162 plan, which is similar to a 401k, but we can use insurance instead of a market based account. So the beauty is we can, the same thing we do on a personal side, we can give the company the same liquidity and reserves, and fulfill the coverage side that most CPAs are familiar with, and and kind of bundle them together. So
And you've talked to a number of different CPAs. Sometimes we referred to Tom Wheelwright's book, right, Tax Free Wealth, to help with that conversation. But that's the importance of having these conversations sooner than later is I just want to reemphasize it because it can make a huge difference. So it's not necessarily that CPAs are unaware, completely oblivious to what you're doing, but just starting that conversation sooner than later will allow for easy, fluid conversation to happen when the appropriate time comes when we're actually talking transaction.
Absolutely.
Okay, so John, that was pretty good. That was a good conversation. Anything else you want to add regarding kind of what you've seen with other professionals that would be important to note?
Oh wow, that's pretty open ended there. Yeah, I mean, tax talk. It's always fun, right? Very important part to involve these other members in our life. So, I would say there's so many different benefits of looking at the big picture, looking at everything and how it fits together. And typically, as we do that, there's multiple changes that happen with someone's wealth strategy. So um, the biggest thing is just to kind of get in and look at how everything fits together, and then we bring in the professionals we need to facilitate. So
And if one of the thing I'll mention before we wrap up is, if you are in between CPAs or you are looking for a CPA or a an estate planning attorney or a business attorney, we have a great strategic network, and so feel free to reach out to your wealth strategist to get an introduction. Well, John, thanks a ton. This has been awesome. I think this is
thank you,
definitely
Patrick.
one of the most important conversations you can have. When it comes to these professional relationships you have in your life, and there's no one better to talk about it than you because you've had so much experience there. So thanks again,
Thank you.
John. Thanks for being here with me and for sharing your expertise. And thanks to each of you clients and listeners that joined us today. Communication with your financial team is a vital part of this strategy, and we're happy you're taking the time to prepare for these important ongoing conversations. So head over to the podcast page of paradigmlife.net for all of the content related to this episode, as well as other helpful resources you can leverage as you start having these conversations. Now, we've got two great guests joining us next time as we talk about the ins and outs of how to best manage your policies with our tenured wealth strategists, Chad Hansen and Will Street. Whether you've started a single policy or have multiple family or business policies in your strategy, Chad and Will are going to share best practices, tips, and advice for ensuring they continue to provide maximum value to you, your business, and your family. So we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Perpetual Wealth Strategy podcast. Be sure to visit the show's official page at paradigmlife.net for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Guest opinions are their own. If you require specific investing, financial, legal, tax, or any other specialized advice, please consult an appropriate professional or a wealth strategist at Paradigm Life. We welcome and appreciate reviews of the show. Head on over to iTunes or Stitcher to leave your review today. And don't forget to subscribe to the show to get access to every new episode and its exclusive content. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.